MLB Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is Nick Tasso at The Inefficient 2. Taking a look at Monday's pitching action. I got a decent-sized slate and some favorable arms. Not as many as yesterday's slate, but still, you do have your decent options.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know we'll talk about him later, but you got a kind of a revenge game for Cueto, and then you have Dallas Keuchel coming off two pretty poor starts. So there's some top price guys, a little narratives going on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Cueto heading back to Great American Ballpark. One thing I'm not very concerned about that usually I am with pitchers is the park factors there. I mean, the guy's had an ERA under 3 in his career at Great American. So, yes, AT&T is way better, but obviously this guy's pitched pretty well in Cincinnati.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that our first game, or where are we going?
No, Coast Pirates. Coast Pirates are first one.
Right. We'll start about that one first then. Go ahead.
Jason Hamill, Garrett Cole, over under a 7. Vegas has this one as a pick-em. Both these guys, quality arms. Hamill lesser than Cole. I'm not a big fan of either arm tonight. I know it's in PNC, which is nice. I know the over-under is pretty low. As far as fantasy upside goes, I think it's pretty limited just with the lineups these two teams are throwing out.
Yeah, you look at Garrett Cole, and I really can't get behind him in this game. He does have a nice ERA, 2.6, but he's just not striking out enough batters like he did last year. And his walk rate has risen a little bit, and you look at the Cubs, they are walking out like a 13% walk rate, which is just crazy right now. So I think there's going to be some regression in this matchup because they are so good. And then you look at Jason Hamill. First thing, I don't like his price, and I'm just still waiting for the other shoe to drop with him. I mean, there's no way he's going to have a under 1 ERA, 90% left on base. And like Cole, his walk rate's up as well. And the Pirates, they've hit decently. They don't have as much power as the Cubs do, but they're still near the tops in WOBA. So I'm a big fan of them for the offensive guys, but I agree with you, staying away from pretty much both these pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, your point was basically the price is way too high. I just think they don't pay that off. And obviously it's a pick-em. I think a win is pretty up in the air. I don't have any strong favorites of one or the other. And I think, when you're paying those price tags, you do want to have a little bit of a better feeling about guys picking up a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you get over like the 7,500, 8,000 range, not that a win is necessarily the winner break all when you're selecting pitchers, but you like to know that there's a good chance you get those extra 4 points or those extra 12 points that can kind of soften the blow if there's not typically striking out as many players as they usually do.
Right, definitely. Next game here, you got Rangers and Blue Jays over under 9 in the Rogers Center. AJ Griffin, R.A. Dickey. Overall, not a big fan of either of these arms. You and I were both talking. We expect AJ Griffin to kind of come back down to earth a little bit. I mean, he doesn't have a big major league sample size anyway, but going up against his Blue Jays team, his ground ball rate's poor. He's allowing a pretty high line drive rate to right-handed bats. So I think with this heavy right-handed lineup, I think he's going to be in for some trouble.
Yeah, the price difference too is crazy, 9,200 on DraftKings, and I think that's probably because of his WOBA against righties at 224. But the Toronto bats, because they're mostly just righties, they're still pretty good. So I really don't know why DraftKings has them up so far. Like, I wouldn't even use them in GPPs just because it just kind of hinders you from doing anything else with your roster construction. On FanDuel, you could maybe utilize him, but I just think there's other pitchers on this slate who could probably do a lot better than him. It's just not a really good matchup overall. And like we talked about, the Rogers Center isn't really kind to many pitchers.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, DraftKings just made it easy for us to just kind of look over him and not even consider. And I'm looking to target some Jays bats against him. On the other side, R.A. Dickey, knuckleballer here. I mean, he's got an ERA over 6 to start the season. Yes, he's cheap, but he just doesn't score well. He allows hits, he allows walks. I just think going up against his Texas team, they're kind of a middle of the road offense, but overall, there's just not enough upside for him to even consider him in any format.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I know righties hit knuckleballers a little bit better, and there's a decent amount of righties on this Texas Rangers lineup with Beltre, but the majority are lefties. So I don't know. Dickey's just one of those guys you absolutely have no idea what you're going to get. With knuckleballers, you typically want a guy who's running really hot. Like when Tim Wakefield was at the top in his years, he would just have those streaks where he was just really good. And you just really aren't seeing that with Dickey. Knuckleballers, you really have really high highs and really low lows, and it looks like that's where Dickey's at right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's no Stephen Wright, that's for sure.
No. I bet you Toronto every day wishes they had that trade back.
Oh,
Dickey for
definitely.
Darno and Noah Syndergaard.
That's I don't know. I don't know how. Hopefully, no one kept their job after that one because that's brutal.
No, it's awful.
Yeah. Next game here, you got Giants and Reds over under a 7.5. Johnny Cueto versus Brandon Finnegan. Cueto, as we mentioned before the show, or before, is heading back to Great American Ballpark. This guy who's always pitched well here, which is always surprising. It's such a great hitter's park, and to have an ERA under 3 in so many innings is quite impressive.
No, absolutely. You look at him and his price is up there. It's the highest on both sites, but I think he's definitely worth it in this matchup. The Reds really aren't too good. They don't walk a lot at all, and they strike out a decent amount, and that's exactly what you kind of want for when you're picking a DFS starting pitcher, a team that strikes out a lot, doesn't walk a lot, and doesn't get a lot of base hits. And they've had a lot of hard time trying to score runs this year, and their WOBA's in the bottom 5, so they're really kind of a mess at times. The only upside they really have is when they face a lefty because they have a lot of righties in their lineup, but just not a good matchup here. And like you said, the ballpark factor typically is not good, but you look at Suedo and what he's done here, and it's really hard to get off of him in this matchup.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And you're just looking at this Giants team. You expect them to get a win going up against Finnegan. I'm expecting their offense to break out a little bit today. And I just think Cueto overall, yes, he's the top priced option. Sure, you can argue, maybe he doesn't justify the price tag at times, but overall, he's been solid this season. FIP under 2.5. So I think by far he's your top option. He's been much more consistent than Keuchel has this year. So I think if you're looking at those two, I think Cueto's by far the top option.
No, absolutely. And then on Cincinnati side with Finnegan, I'm just absolutely staying away from him. I think a lot of people will be on the Giants hitters just because what they did to Syndergaard on Sunday, but it's just Finnegan's a lefty, and the Giants just hit at pretty much everyone pretty well. Finnegan has a nice ERA, but his home run to fly ball rate isn't very good, and he doesn't have a good ground ball rate at all. And his home ERA is 6.30, so I'm absolutely staying away from him in this matchup.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's allowed 4 home runs in the last 3 starts and hasn't gone deep in those games either. Yeah, I mean, I think he's in trouble. There's no way I'm taking him on this slate at all.
Nope.
Next one, you got the Braves and Mets here, and you got Bartolo Colon versus Mike Foltywitz. And this one, I'm a sucker for Colon at times. I don't think this is going to be one of those matchups. I know he's a cheap SP2 option, heavily going to probably get the win. But overall, I mean, I think you're shooting for a little bit more upside.
Yeah, absolutely. He's kind of one of those pitchers who just kind of gets you a quality start. He'll go 6 innings, he'll give up 2-3 runs, and he doesn't get many strikeouts. He's priced a little bit better on DK for starting pitcher 2, but that kind of stinks because they subtract for hits and walks, and that's the bad thing about Cologne. He gives up a lot of those, but for whatever reason, he just hasn't given up a lot of runs lately. I don't mind him on FanDuel at that price, but when you're only selecting one starter at that price, there's a couple other guys I'd probably go over him. But you look at this Atlanta lineup, and they're really not that good. I mean, other than Freeman, they really can't put it together.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Colon's a guy, I mean, like you mentioned, the pricing thing, you got Edison Volquez. Obviously, he's coming off a bad start for just 100 more, has much more upside. Colon's just a guy who just trots out there, maybe gets you 13 DK points and calls it a day. It's nothing more. I mean,
I don't even
that's
know
what you're
how
going to get.
I don't even know how he's still pitching. I mean, I remember when I was like 10 years old, he was pitching, and it's crazy how this is the one guy, the overweight guy who has hung along for so long now.
It's his diet. what he chalks it up to. It's got to be the diet.
I guess all the red meat. I don't know what he's doing.
On the other side, well, the Braves are calling up another right-handed pitcher that struggles with lefties, and it's just a continuous line that they throw out of right-handers that absolutely get crushed by left-handed pitching. I can't get behind him in this Mets team, whose offense is kind of heated up. I'm really looking to target a lot of the New York bats on today's slate.
Absolutely. I mean, Fultonevich, I know he pitched a lot last year, and he really wasn't that good at times. He was okay. But like you said, this matchup here isn't the best. I know the ballpark's pretty good over in Citi Field, but it's just one of those things. He's really cheap on FanDuel. I don't even think he's on DraftKings pricing, but I'm just absolutely staying away from him. There's no real reason to play him in any format.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Next one here, you got Angels and Brewers in Miller Park, 8.5 over under. You got Jared Weaver, Jimmy Nelson. The 8.5 over under scares me a little bit, but I also think you could see actually kind of somewhat of a pitcher's duo just because these offenses can be disappointing at times. Nelson, he really struggles with left-handed bats, but looking at this Angels lineup, there aren't really any that scare me off of him. If I'm building multiple lineups, he might find his way just because that price tag is pretty cheap at $7,500 on DraftKings. I think there is some decent upside there with him.
Yeah, I can be talked into going with either pitcher really from this game. I mean, you look at Jared Weaver, and he hasn't really been good this year, but so hasn't the Brewers. I know they kind of exploded on Sunday, but I think that's going to be to the extent of their offense, and maybe they take a step back on Monday night and really don't perform well against Jared Weaver. Plus, Weaver's been going up against teams with the DH, so he kind of gets the factor of not having to pitch against the DH here, so that could kind of boost him. And his price tag is just really low on DraftKings, only $6,500. And then again, you look on the other side with Jimmy Nelson, 7,500 DraftKings, 71 on FanDuel, and he's been good at times, and like you said, struggles against lefties. But outside of Cole Calhoun, there's no lefty that could actually do anything for the Angels. So they're both very intriguing, and I mean, if I get to the point where I'm able to fit them in my lineup and get an extra bat or two, I probably would go with either one of them.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think that over-under is just a little bit hyped up. I know because Miller Park obviously enhances power. These are two guys who are prone to the long ball at times. But obviously, I think these two lineups, they can kind of play into things. And it's probably going to be a boomer bust situation. I don't see anything really in between.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a gun to my head, I'd probably go with Jimmy Nelson just because they're taking the DH from the Angels, and the Angels aren't too good of an offense. And if Pujols' plantar fasciitis flares up or something and he can't play first, that extremely weakens them, even though they're really not that good anyways with him in.
Yeah, definitely. So these guys in play in tournaments, you were leaning towards Nelson. I am as well. I think that's kind of the play there. But obviously, Weaver makes his case for a little bit cheaper too.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on DraftKings where you save an extra 1,000. But like going with Cologne, he could still give up a decent amount of hits and walks, which would kind of hinder his total fantasy value.
Yeah, definitely. Next game here, we got Twins and Astros and Jose Barrios, Dallas Keuchel. Houston, big favorites here, minus 175, over under of 8. Barrios making his second major league start. Obviously, he's a highly touted prospect. I'd like to see these guys get a few games under their belt before I roll them out in any format. I know Barrios, I mean, he has a quality arm. He's likely going to be a Rookie of the Year contender. Houston does strike out a lot. A deep GPP play at the most. Maybe you throw him in one. But overall, I think Keuchel's kind of the stronger play by far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Twins are really, really bad offense. Their K rate's around 23%, and their average is in the 230s. And I know Keuchel's coming off 2 bad games, but I think this is kind of where he turns it around. And you look at yesterday with the Twins where they scored a good amount of runs, but that was kind of because of Mike Pelfrey, which is pretty obvious. So, I mean, it's such a really good matchup here, even though there are a lot of righties in this lineup, and it's in Minnesota. So, no, it's in Minute Maid, right?
Minute Maid, yeah.
Oh, I can't even read my notes sometimes. Sorry about that. I mean, not the best ballpark, but we've seen Keuchel go out there in Minute Maid, and he's really, with his ground ball rate, really kept everything in the park. And he's just one of those pitchers who, if he's rolling, he's really rolling. But sometimes he does have the blow up games like he did the last two. So I'm a little hesitant of him, but in cash games, I think he's one of the top two plays, him and Suedo. I really don't think if you want to pay up for pitching in cash games, it's got to be those two.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, really, outside of his lone home start against Detroit in the opening day start against New York, he's been pretty underperforming, and I do think he bounces back here. Like you mentioned, the ground ball rate high, it's 60% going back to last season. That's phenomenal against a team that is heavily right-handed, and with their strikeout rate, I think Keuchel has that big time upside. And being cheaper, 900 cheaper than Cueto there on DraftKings, that's a nice discount. Obviously, there's not a tremendous discount on FanDuel, but I think Keuchel's kind of the swerve off of Cueto.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at Keuchel, and that ground ball rate is just out of this world. We really don't see it too often, and that's what really sets him apart from a lot of other pitchers who will go out there and have similar stats, and they'll get blown up once or twice. But the ground ball rate is really his bread and butter, and that's why I just like him almost every start.
Yeah.
Now, how do you say it? Barrios? I don't even know.
I'm rolling with Barrios.
All right, because my little notepad changed it to Cheerios. I don't know why. So I'm all confused. So I might need a second. But yeah, I mean, he's really. I agree with you. I'm staying away from him, especially on DraftKings. Maybe in a deep GPP on FanDuel, I'd kind of go with him, but he only went 4 innings last time, and he got hit kind of hard. It should be noted, too, that Carlos Santana stole a base off him, and his delivery is really slow to the plate with the runners on, so Altuve and Correa could get some stolen bases in this matchup, and if they're on, they get a second, another base hit scores them, so it could go really poorly pretty quickly. I know he does have a pretty high strikeout upside, but I don't know. This one kind of scares me.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point with the speed. That top of the lineup, Altuve, Springer, Correa, they're all guys who can swipe a bag. And if he's not holding guys on, and obviously.
No, it was really bad. I was watching that game, and one of the guys, I believe, on MLB Network was talking about him being like El Duque, taking forever to get to the plate.
Oh boy, that's not good then. Yeah, that might be that final nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah, because a single basically that can really hurt him, because then that turns into a runner at second, and then one more base hit, and that's basically scored a run scored with that kind of speed.
Yeah, definitely. That is a little bit concerning. Next game here, we got Nationals and Royals over under 7.5. KC -110. Gio Gonzalez, Edison Volquez, two slightly above average arms, you can call them. Gonzalez going up against this Royals team that, one, they're coming back off the road trip, the West Coast there. They haven't been particularly well. They're still not striking out a ton, which is why I tend to still stay away from them, even though they haven't been scoring a ton of runs. Obviously, we saw Wade Miley throw a complete game of shutouts. I don't expect lefties to throw shutouts too often against this Kansas City team. At Gonzalez's price tag, I'm still kind of staying away.
Yeah, I know Gonzalez, he's been really good this year, and I think at his price tag, he's kind of one of those trap guys where it's like, oh, well, he's that low, so I think he's going to be good, and then he kind of blows up, and unfortunately, that's what I think is going to happen here. I know the Royals have like a WOBA right around 300, but I don't know. I feel it's one of those games where it could get ugly pretty quickly, and I'm staying away.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Volquez, I liked him in the last start. I thought he was a solid SP2. The price is still down. That wasn't the case going up against that Angels team, allowed 8 runs. I'm expecting a better start. I think it could be a possibility that maybe he's going to be better off at home this season because he has been so far this year. In 3 starts has a 0.96 ERA, just 2 earned. So that could be something brewing there. I still think SP2-wise, I know the blow-up happened last game, but I think he's still a decent option.
Yeah, I really like him in this start. I mean, you look at the Washington offense, and outside of Bryce Harper, Daniel Murphy, we talk about this every time that we chat, they're really not that good. So I kind of like him as SP2 on DraftKings. His price is low. I don't know if I'd play him as my lone starter on FanDuel, but I think he's definitely worth it in DraftKings. And then you also look at this Nats offense, who we already agree aren't very good. Now they have to throw another bat out there for DH, who will most likely be Clint Robinson. So it's just I don't feel too safe with him. The only thing I do want to note, though, is because Harper struck out 4 times in his first 4 plate appearances on Sunday, I think he's going to be angry in this matchup and really swing for the fences here.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Carlos Martinez going up against that Nationals offense, and he really had the one bad inning, and that was what kind of led to his downfall. But did strike out 8, did go deep into the game. So I think if Volquez is in a similar boat, I don't expect 8 strikeouts, but if he can kind of avoid that one bad inning, he should be pretty solid.
Yeah, and I think he struggles a lot with his walks, and I don't really foresee him having too many struggles walking a lot of Nats batters. I think they are pretty much free swinging, and I mean, you look at Bryce Harper, and yeah, he can walk a lot of intentional walks, but he can also strike out pretty easily. So I mean, there's not too much to like here out of this Nationals offense.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Next game, you got Phillies and Cardinals. Jeremy Hellickson, Adam Wainwright. Wainwright, a big favorite here, minus 199, 7.5 over under. I cannot get behind Wainwright. I mean, even though it's the Phillies at home, he's a big favorite. I just think that upside is completely shot, and I know his price is starting to come down a bit because of that, but I still want it to come down even lower.
Yeah, his price is still crazy on DraftKings, 8,900. I mean, that's an easy kind of fade. It's almost in the AJ Griffin range. You see that, and you just don't even think about it in any format. But I don't think he's too bad on FanDuel. I know he hasn't been good for most of his starts, but this Phillies offense is pretty bad, and it's not the best park in the world, but you look at them on most days hitting inside or at Citizens Bank Park, and they really don't do much. It's typically the opponents who do something.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And I kind of go through Wainwright start this season. I mean, Braves,
They're painful.
Reds, Padres. I mean, he's faced 3 bottom 5 offenses and hasn't done much. And I mean, he'll face another one here tonight. And he didn't look bad against the Diamondbacks. He put up a respectable start. And I think, as you mentioned, the pricing difference, Wainwright, I might be able to get behind him because he does allow you to roster plenty of bats on draft or on FanDuel.
Yeah.
But either way, I think it's, for the most part, I don't think he's going to find his way into too many of my lineups.
No, not at all. And same kind of thing with Hellickson. I know his price is down, but he's been really awful at Citizens Bank Park. I don't have his ERA here, but I know looking it up, it was, I think, over 6 or 7, and it was just so bad. I know it was only 2 starts, but I mean, he just hasn't really been the same pitcher. In away games, his ERA is 0.96, so go figure, but I'm just staying away from this one.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's funny because both those games, well, he's only faced 2 teams all year, Washington and the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, he has been better on the road through 7 innings of scoreless ball against Washington, 5.2, 2 earned, but struck out 5. So, overall, I think, look at this Cardinals offense. They're a little bit up and down at times, but it's still a top half offense that should be able to handle Hellickson.
Yeah, they're still somehow leading the league in runs scored, and they're top 5 in home runs. So I kind of don't like to really target them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. 10:05 game here, Mariners and Athletics in Oakland. Nate Karns versus Kendall Graveman. Seattle minus 115, over under 7.5. I know it's out there in the West Coast. Once again, I just don't feel like there's a ton of upside with these guys. Karns might be like I might take a look at just because he is a little bit cheaper. I think he does offer a little bit more upside than guys like Cologne at a similar price tag. You know, he's a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, Karns has pitched pretty well out the gate with Seattle, and this game's going to be in Oakland, so that ballpark's definitely going to factor in here. But I don't know. I think Oakland, just personal opinion, I think they've been coming around a little bit with the bats, and I think they're just one of those teams that could kind of kind of frustrate a starter. So I'm just kind of staying away from him here. On the flip side, I do sort of like Kendall Graveman because we've seen Seattle's offense kind of go dormant at times, even though Nelson Cruz and you still have Cano. But I don't know. There's just his price tag on both sites. Graveman is so cheap, and I know he had a terrible game last time out, so his ownership will be extremely low. But before that, he had three solid starts. I know there weren't huge upsides, but the one before his last start, I think he had, 25 plus DraftKings points. So, I mean, there is potential there, and at that, the price is just so low that he's worth taking a shot on in a couple GPPs.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, 28 DK points in that last start at Yankee Stadium, which was surprising. In the two before that, just 13, but he didn't pick up the win in either one. So, he picks up a win. That's 17, 18 DraftKings points right there, and that's very solid for a guy who's 5,800. You can still pair him with a Keuchel and Cueto and still force him plenty of bats.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know why his price is so low. He's really only had one bad game so far. I mean, I don't think he should be really high up there, but I think like in the 6,500, 7,000 isn't too out of the realm of possibility for Graveman. But I don't know what these algorithms do, so I'll let the professionals handle that.
He's no AJ Griffin, that's for sure.
No, no 92. Man.
Last game of the night here, Rockies and Padres in Petco. Jonathan Gray versus James Shields. 7.5 over under. San Diego minus 133 favorites. Obviously, Shields winless on the season. Hasn't been pitched bad. I can't get behind Shields a little bit, but I just think the upside's a little bit timid with both these guys. I know the offenses are obviously you're looking at this Coors lineup that usually hammers in their home ballpark, but outside of that, they're kind of a little bit lifeless at times.
Yeah, I mean, they've hit well at Chase Field, but that's just because Chase Field is like Colorado South, or I don't even know the geography, but you get my point. And I agree with you. You look at Shields, and he's just been really terrible this year. He hasn't been able to do much of anything. I think he has the most strikeout upside just because it is the Rockies, and they do tend to strike out a good amount. And Shields still in his career has pitched somewhat well and has high strikeout rates. But like you said, these are just two guys I want to stay away from like 100%. I mean, there's so many other options that I'd much rather go with. And then John Gray's price on DraftKings is just silly. It's 7,900, and he has like an 11 ERA. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gray's a guy who obviously is getting the Padres on the road. He's getting outside. I mean, I think he actually could be a decent pitcher when he gets outside of Coors. Could be serviceable at times. Obviously, we haven't seen it. But overall, I mean, Shields hasn't – I don't think he's been too bad this year. You look at who he's faced. I mean, it's 4 teams that don't strike out a ton. Looking at San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Arizona, and obviously at Coors. But overall, I mean, he's been pitching deep into the games. He just can't get that win to really push him up over the hump.
Well, it's because the offense is so terrible in San Diego.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing to consider. I know he's a favorite, but it's like if these two get into a pitcher duel, I mean, you're likely seeing neither of these guys getting a win because both teams aren't putting up any offensive points.
So are you saying John Gray's 7,900 is an okay price?
No, I'm looking at him more so on
okay.
FanDuel.
All right.
Yeah.
I was scared for a second.
No, that's way too high for me.
I think that's worse than AJ Griffin, to be honest with you.
Huh?
I think that's worse than AJ Griffin, the 7,900.
Yeah, I mean, they must just have like a multiplier for when their pitchers playing the Padres.
Yeah, it must. But if you look at 7,900 there, then Kershaw should have been probably 15,000 or 16,000 on Sunday. So
yeah,
I don't know what they do.
That's true. But I don't know. Maybe it was that Giancarlo Stanton that factor like knocked him down to 1,000.
Yeah.
So that's gonna wrap things up here with a pitcher nail down. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all the great tools and content.